All right, everyone. Hey, this is Ryan Payne for my mentoring session today. And as always, I hope Facebook Live is working. I think it is. If you have questions, you can put them on the left-hand side. I'll try to answer some at the end. But I've got a lot of questions to go through, and just to give you a little background on myself, if you haven't seen me do a live before, Ryan Payne, my company is a wealth management firm, Payne Capital Management. So essentially what we do is help people manage their own finances and investments. And in addition to that, I built my business from scratch. So any questions you have about business building or anything to do with your finances, like these are topics I'm very comfortable talking to you about, and I can give you my experiences about as I built my firm. So having said that, hope everyone's having a good summer, whether you're quarantined, not quarantined, semi-quarantined. I'm probably in that semi-camp right now up in New York City right now. It's definitely getting a little more lively than it was before, which is good. And hopefully for where you are in the country, you're able to live a little bit and not only survive, but thrive the quarantine. So let's get to it. I've got a lot of questions to answer for you today. And we're going to start with Deanna Markle. And Deanna, as always, I hope I said your name completely correct. If I didn't, I apologize. And the question that Deanna has on her mind today is, I'm interviewing new candidates for a licensed I'm going to butcher this, esthetician position. I think I'm saying this correctly. My question is, what are the best questions to ask when I conduct an interview? That is a really good question. And, I think it really depends on what you're looking for in that candidate. Like, I don't do a lot of the hiring in my business now, but I did it initially. And for me, I was hiring a lot of financial people or financial advisors that were going to have to be client facing. So one of the really important roles was being able to connect with people on a human level, like that old EQ versus IQ, right? Emotionally, you have someone who has more emotional intelligence is a really big, in my industry, it's extremely important thing to have. So when we would hire people, or still do hire people, we really look for that EQ versus IQ. And a couple ways that I would test people on that is we'd have a lot of conversations. I'd ask a lot of open-ended questions, and I wanted to see how they would interact. And above and beyond that, we actually took it to another level where I would actually have this participant or candidate sit in a room, and we'd do like a round robin. I'd actually have a lot of my advisors in the room and just going around and asking that person questions, like kind of put them on the hot seat a little bit. So I don't know with your profession, what are those skills you're looking for, but I would do something to try to test those skills that you're looking for specifically. So, for me, it's really important to get a feel for someone's EQ, because I've made some mistakes before where we've hired advisors and they were great in their interview, great resume, but when we actually hired them and they actually had to interact with people, we made some bad decisions. And it ended up not working out. A lot of times it was kind of like a mutual, like, hey, that person felt like this role wasn't right for me, and we were like, okay, we know you're not doing a great job at this. So I think about the role that they have to play, and aesthetician. I really want to get this right. Aesthetician. God, all right, I'm embarrassing myself now, but I'm not sure exactly what that skill set would be. So that's what you have to think about there. So I think that's really, really important. The next question that comes in is from Adam Drake, and he writes in, I lead a team of financial advisors. I can relate to that, Adam. I own the company, and I will be hiring an assistant in the next few months. This will be our only non-advisor employee. Should I focus my hiring on serving existing clients' operations, which I feel we aren't being as consistent as we should be, or solely on sales and marketing, or a mix? Does hiring a jack of all trades ever really work? Or should I just commit to either sales or service? I understand if I commit to one or the other, these are different types of people I'm looking for. Also, what questions can I ask myself and my team to get more clarity? Okay, this kind of plays into the last question, and I really like this, Adam, because you're absolutely right about this. Someone who's going to be more on the operations side, serving clients maybe from an operational role, is different than your financial advisor, again, who has that high EQ, emotional intelligence, is going to be able to talk to them about their problems, but a lot of times they're not the person that can actually follow up on things. Whereas you get a really good service person, they know how to do the grunt work, they know how to talk to the client politely, but they're good at the grunt work, not building rapport like your financial advisor. So I think this can work in two ways for you. Number one, it sounds to me like you need an operations person ASAP. It sounds like you don't have that. And servicing the clients you have is always more important than getting that next business in the door. Because if you service your clients really, really well, they're going to refer you other people anyway. And in addition to that, you're not going to have to go out and do as much hunting for new leads and things like that. You should do that too, but make sure you have your clients, existing clients, happy, getting serviced well. Now, your financial advisors, in my opinion, this is the way I've structured my firm, they should be good salespeople too. Those skill sets should go hand in hand. So basically what you could do is, you brought in just an operations person, is they could be the ones maybe facilitating the leads and then giving them to your financial advisors so they can go out there and be the sales face and persuade people to come into your firm and invest their money. So I think, to me, that's where I would go with that, just intuitively listening to your question. I wouldn't necessarily, look at a person who would be a hybrid. That usually doesn't work. You already kind of know that. But I think that if you have a service person that can facilitate leads, and they can be the first line of defense. Like in my firm, when we have cold leads come in, maybe they saw us on TV or on the radio, something like that, I won't put them with the salespeople first. I'll have that first line of defense will be an operations person to just do the basics. Like, hey, how you doing? What are you exactly looking for? And they'll actually filter out to make sure it's a good lead for our firm or someone who would actually do business with us. Then they put it up on the financial advisor's calendar, and then the financial advisor has it all laid out for them. They just have to go make the phone call, build the rapport, and then run with it from there. So that's how our model works, and it works really, really well, especially if you're scaling up. So maybe along those lines where you have someone who's an operations person, and again, not to repeat myself, but in addition to that is the one that is the facilitator of leads that come into your firm. So I hope that helps. And for Deanna and Adam as well, you can always DM me if you want to talk a little further about that, and I can give you a little more insight. Next question comes in from Adam Komorowski. I think I'm saying that correctly. He writes in, has anyone bought a local email list from a company? If so, what are the key points to look for when dealing with companies that sell lists? Also, what email softwares did or do you use, or is it just not worthwhile? Thank you. I've only bought a couple lists in my lifetime. And, from perspective, I get a referral, someone in your industry specifically. So I'm not sure exactly, Adam, what your industry is. Like in mine, I would talk to another wealth management firm and say, hey, who do you use for your list? And ask them what kind of success they have. My belief in business is don't reinvent the wheel. Someone's already blazed the trail of glory. So I think from your perspective, what you want to do is copy somebody who's had success with a list and go through the same company. Ideally, a competitor is not right in your area because we're all happy to share as long as we're not fishing in the same pond. So I would get a direct referral from someone who already has a list. And then from a software perspective, I think softwares typically can be very industry specific. Like the software we use is very specific to financial advisors. So again, don't reinvent the wheel there. Find someone in your industry where they buy their lists, how they manage things from a software perspective, because I think using a software program in general is a really good idea to automate things. But again, someone has that template for you. So I would go with their template versus trying to reinvent the wheel there. And I'm sure you could talk to somebody in your industry that would help you out there. I do it all the time. I always hit up people in my industry when I want to get the best advice about something that someone's already done. I'll give you an example of that right now. We're trying to transform our radio show into a podcast. I've talked to about 5 different financial advisors nationwide who have had successful podcasts. And they're, again, we're not in the same market. They're just happy to give me the blueprint. In fact, I'm going to hire the same firm that they're using to actually produce my podcast, because that's great too, because they're already dealing with financial advisors who are successful with their podcast. Then I'd rather work with somebody who already knows that template or blueprint. And that's also another good rule of thumb I think we can all apply to business is learn the rules, then you can break the rules. Don't try to reinvent the wheel at first. Learn how it all works. And once you learn how it works and you master it, then you can get more creative. That's what we did with radio is we learned from other advisors. We did their show, which was in some cases more mediocre, but I learned the steps, and then we ended up doing our own customized show, and we do it better than most people now because, after we learned the rules, we started to break them and figure out things that, are even better, build upon that initial blueprint. So I think that today, if anything else, you can take away from this mentor session, no matter what business you're in, is I think that's huge. And it's a good reminder for me too, as we're starting some new ventures. Whenever the one thing I hate, unless you're Steve Jobs and you're creating a whole new industry, which some of you might be doing that, so I don't want to discount that either. But for most of us, I'm a simple man. I come from Philadelphia. It's not about inventing the wheel. It's like, let's copy something that already works. I don't like the whole idea of if you build it, they will come. I've built a lot of things and put a lot of money into things that I didn't know were going to work. And guess what? They didn't work. So, try to stay away from that. And the other thing is, I will just add just another thing on this subject, because I think it's important for everybody to think about right now, is do it on a small scale first. Don't ratchet something up big time. Like maybe you do find that blueprint that works. Do it on a smaller test scale. Dip your toe in the water, and if you see some traction, then start leveraging it up. So you're not just throwing a ton of time and energy into something. I have a colleague of mine who's an entrepreneur that when he builds sales products, he puts an offer on his YouTube that says, would you be interested in this product? If you are, email me. So he doesn't even have the product built yet, but he's going out and finding out what interests there are for the product ahead of time. So if he gets a very few emails and people aren't interested, he just bags the product. But if he gets a lot of interest, then he goes and builds the product because he has the interest there. Like a very smart way to do things. So, it's always good to make sure the market's real as opposed to just like shooting blindly. And it's attractive to do it that way. It feels sexy to be like, oh, I'm going to create something new and different no one's ever seen before. And then to find out that no one really cares. That kind of sucks. So you get my point there. But that's a great question, Adam. And I think that's something we can all learn from. Next question comes in from Edwin Diraz. He writes in, at what point should a company have a board of directors? Is it okay to not have a board of directors? What benefit have you seen once your company established a board of directors? I don't know where that stage actually is, Edwin. In fact, my firm, I don't know, we do like 6 to 7 million maybe this year in revenue. I don't have a board of directors. So I don't know the size where it says you have to, but I know a lot of companies that are smaller than me that have a board of directors, and certainly I know a lot of businesses that are larger than me that certainly have a board of directors. I would have to say, and I'm actually thinking about this for my own business, it's probably never bad to have a board of directors. Even if it's informal, because of the connections that you could make through that, and also getting other people with a vested interest in what you're doing. So the fact that I don't have a board of directors, I don't think that's actually a smart thing. I could get some very influential people, maybe take them out once a quarter, let them look under the hood of my business, and you could do this too, or your business, and get some really good advice and get it from people that, maybe could really help you. So strategically pick those people and put them in a room. I know a lot of people in my industry that have done that and been very, very successful. So I don't think you could ever be too small. And I'm embarrassed to say I haven't done this yet, but this is also a good reminder for me that maybe having a board of directors would not be a bad idea, because people love to help. I think when you reach out, especially to successful people, and you go from the perspective of I need advice, and that's essentially what a board of directors is. Someone maybe who sold their business for a big number. Now they're just chilling and they like projects to work on. That could be a great type of person to have on your board. And it's flattering when you come to somebody with hey, I could use your advice. I value it. And when someone feels like their advice is valued and they're asking for it, when they have that vested interest now, they're going to work really, really hard to help you and your business succeed. And if they have a great Rolodex too, that doesn't hurt either. So I think that's actually a really smart thing to do. And that's a good lesson for all of us. Thank you for bringing that up, Edwin. I could use that advice as well. That should be some homework. Maybe we could talk about that on the next Facebook Live. And it's definitely something I got to think about as well. But always good to have influential people around you that have a vested interest in your business. Bam. Can't say anything bad about that. Okay, next question comes in from Ben Cantia. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Ben writes in, I'm at the point with my business where I cannot scale, and it seems I cannot go over either an amount of money / month or a number of projects a month. I had this when I had 5 employees and also when I had 1 employee. I find it difficult to delegate tasks, but not in the way that I don't trust other people to do it, but because I find it time consuming and I'd rather do it myself. Of course, this leads to frustration and some of the work doesn't get done in time. A problem that I see is being unfocused on one project at a time. My focus now is on 3 project/businesses, and this might be the thing that keeps me at this level. One business is an advertising agency where I deal with 15 to 20 businesses a month. What is the best way to what is the best way to work to avoid to be a one-man show, even if you have a team behind you? Okay. These are great questions today. And Ben, I'm going to tell you right now, man, just reading this at face value, you don't delegate enough. It's not about trust, maybe, but you find it time consuming and rather do it yourself. You got to bite the bullet, brother. What happens is no one initially can do it as good as you. And I'm guessing you're kind of a perfectionist here. And I used to be this way too, and my business didn't really expand until I was able to accept when I delegate something to somebody else, initially it's not going to get done at 100%. In some cases, maybe it's 80%. Hell, maybe it's 60%. That's okay because, if you have a business that's running relatively well and maybe things are getting done at an 80% capacity, but it gives you the time to free up to really focus on growing your business over here, that's better than being stuck at this ceiling, doing everything at 100% right off the bat. But what's going to happen is once you embrace this and you accept that things are not going to get done perfectly initially, eventually, and it does suck for your ego a little bit, but people are going to do things better than you. In my business now, I would say everything that I used to do, there's someone in my business that can do it better than me. And you would think, well, then why the hell are you the leader of the business if people can do things better than you? Because they can do one thing better than me in one area. It's not like they can do everything better than me in all areas. And I think if you want to become a bigger business and scale up, and you want to work on your business as opposed to being in your business, you don't have to be the superstar at everything. You just need to have the vision and the strategy to deploy your people and thinking about structure and thinking about where that business development comes in, all on a bigger scale than being the best at any one task. And I think ego does get wrapped into this, Ben, and you may not want to admit it to yourself. But man, especially when some young person maybe in your business can do something better than you, sometimes it kind of sucks. Like I'll give you an example in my business. A lot of it is selling. You've got to be very good in front of people, convince them to give you their net worth, which, look, we've got a great process. I'm really proud of what we do, but certainly there's a salesmanship aspect to that as well. And I close a lot of business over the course of the last, couple decades, and that's great. But I can tell you now, there are people in my organization that are financial advisors that are better salespeople than I ever was. But, just being a good salesperson or being good at certain tasks doesn't warrant that you're the best person to run your entire business. The fact that you started your business, period, you have 3 businesses, it sounds like, and you're able to do that structurally, well, man, not many people can do that. That's a very rare skill set. So it sounds like to me you've just got to bite the bullet, accept the fact that people aren't going to do things as well as you do at first, and then accept the fact they're going to do it better than you did and be grateful for it, because that just frees up so much more time. Like I used to handle over 200 clients. Believe me, I was not envisioning newer and bigger things for my business when I was caught in the weeds handling 200 clients. And I did it well, man. I put the show on. But I trained a lot of other people. Now we have 8 advisors that handle all those relationships. I handle maybe 20. That counts for maybe 15% of my time. And I certainly don't do it as well as my other advisors, but I'm spending a hell of a lot of time thinking about how to grow our business. Like I just mentioned, I'm getting into doing a podcast now. I've done a radio show. I'm going to be on Fox Business today at 2:20 actually, if you're around. I couldn't do those things before if all I was doing was servicing relationships. So yes, you are micromanaging. Yes, you need to relinquish control. And yes, you need to accept that things aren't going to get done perfectly initially, but you're going to get rewarded on the back end. And that's good for everybody here. We can all take that advice. Boom. Okay, next question. This comes in from Kristen Lattice. And Kristen writes in, how many times is too many times to follow up? I had 2 conversations in the DMs, and one girl booked a call with me, and the other is still making a decision. I followed up 4 times with both, and neither is answering the messages, and I'm adding urgency saying I only have 2 slots available in July, but still nothing. I really want to work on these projects as they're my ideal clients and both want big projects done. Business description. So you're selling, okay, this is cool. You're selling on Facebook Messenger and getting to book show up to their calls. Okay, this is a great question because there is what we call the art of the deal here. And I may have talked about this in a past video cast, and I think I may have. But, there's a real fine line. I think it's almost like dating a little bit where, and it's just human nature. And think about when you're courting. I think I talked about this before, and I'll try to do this in the most PC manner I possibly can. But I think it's really about no one wants to know that you need them too badly. And you can think about this. If you're married now, you might be remember back to those dating days. We're, as human nature, we're always suspect when someone wants to do something too badly or work with us too badly. And I think, I always call it, when it comes to garnering business and having people work with you, it's like, I call it polite persistence. Or it's like, hey, I would love to work with you, but I don't need your business. I'd love to have your business. It would be beneficial for both of us. But if you don't work with me, I've got a lot of business over here. And that can be kind of hard to do because you're like, you're focusing on this. You want it to happen. So my thoughts are, I'd follow up initially like, okay, maybe that first DM goes out. Maybe they respond to you, maybe they don't. I wait a week. I might shoot a note. Hey, I just wanted to shoot you a note. Any questions about, what we're going to do together potentially or my proposal, yada, yada, yada. No response. I also talked about this last time too. If you have other contact information, I don't know if you just through DM, I always try to find their mode of communication because sometimes you could be DMing someone, but they don't really check their Facebook or their Instagram. Maybe text messages are the only thing they respond to, or maybe it's email. Like I always talk about this. I'm kind of weird and I'm terrible at text messages, but man, my inbox gets cleaned out daily. If you email me, you get a response. But if you text message me, I may respond, I may not respond. But I found this with clients, prospective clients. Everyone's got their mode of communication. So if you have different channels, I'd also mix up how I'm following up. Maybe I'll try a text message the second time, or no, after the third time. So another week goes by. Maybe try them on a text message. Just say, hey, just checking in again. Haven't heard from you. Wanted to see if you had any questions about my proposal. Okay, that's at that point, maybe then wait 2 weeks. You start staggering out further. And I always do what I call like a do or die message. Like, hey, just checking in again. Again, if it's 2 weeks, you're not being overly aggressive here. But you could just say something like, you just want to know, should I continue to follow up with you? I just want to make sure you should be on my follow-up list. So what you're saying to them, you're giving them an out. Like, let me know if you don't want to work with me, but if you do, just let me know. Give me the courtesy that I should follow up with you or not. That one typically works. You might just go, oh my God, I'm just so crazy busy. Follow with me in a week or something like that. Now, if you don't hear anything from that, then I start pushing out maybe a month later, just a quick ping like, hey, just checking in. Would you still like to discuss? Then go 2 months and then maybe just put them on a like quarterly, then maybe an annual thing. And at that point, it should maybe just be more automated or someone else on your team. But yeah, you have to be really careful there because I always feel really uncomfortable if someone's pitching me and I just feel like, oh my God, they're being so aggressive. Like, I'm going to go back to this podcast because it's kind of top of mind for me right now, is I talked to a couple different podcast companies that put together podcasts, and I talked to them, interviewed them, and like one of them was following up like way too much. Like, hey, I haven't heard from you. And you get to the point where you're like, I maybe thought about doing business with you, but God, like, you might not have a lot of business going on if you just keep like pestering me like this. So you want to just seem cool, checking in, and just pace it right. And I hope that's not too vague for you, but I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to tell you here. Because again, the worst thing is you never want to seem a little too desperate or maybe not so PC, so horny for the deal per se is what we like to say. Maybe we don't say that anymore. I don't know. Got to make sure I'm walking the line there. But you get what I'm saying there. So polite persistence, space that stuff out, Kristen. Be smart. Okay, another question coming in. Man, we have a lot today. This is from Adam Drake again. He writes in, has anyone used Nextdoor specifically for marketing, and there any nuances or methods to use this particular social media site effectively? We've been getting an okay flow of business from people recommending us. For example, I need a CPA or financial advisors, post it, and someone will respond with our company name. One idea we had was to start sending the people that recommend us on Nextdoor handwritten thank you cards and Starbucks cards. Okay, so in just background again, Adam leads a team of financial advisors, just like me. The question is for my team and how we market to get more leads. I actually love that. I don't even know what Nextdoor is. That sounds like an amazing platform, Adam, and I love the fact you're using that. I think that's a great idea. I don't know if I'd use a Starbucks card just because it's so overused, but come up with something really creative. In fact, I don't know. Find out where that person lives specifically. Maybe find out, we're quarantined right now, maybe not a restaurant or an outdoor restaurant. Find out like something in that town that would be like really cool for that person to do. I think a really nice restaurant that's open during quarantine that you can find out, like get the rating for the best restaurant in their area or something like that and get a gift card to there. That would be pretty sweet. So I think that's a great idea, but don't go generic. Go with something a little more customized to thank for that referral. I think that'll go a long way, and I think that's a really good idea. And in fact, I love that idea so much that I want to use that when I get referred business again, because that makes complete sense. Because like we've all gotten that Starbucks card, and it's like, yeah, it's a little plain vanilla, but like, oh my God, I love that restaurant down the street. That's like the best restaurant in town. How cool, even if it's like a $50 gift certificate, right? If it's a really nice meal and it costs $100 and I get it half price because I got this gift certificate, it's maybe a reason to bring the husband or wife out for the night, the kids out like during quarantine. And again, now I would research to make sure they have like great outdoor seating, but man, oh man, wow, that's a good idea. Okay, cool. We're all writing that down, I hope. Okay, so that is awesome. Let's go to the next one. Erica Wilkinson writes in, what are your views on having a small business that is going to fund what you really want to do? I own a cleaning business, but this isn't something I want to do forever. I want to get my real estate license, buy investment properties that my cleaning/property management companies manage. I want to open real estate offices in large areas, Las Vegas, Nashville, Miami. You've got big goals here. And it's really impressive. So I like that. So let's unpack this a little bit for you, Erica. Let's talk about this. So you own a cleaning company. You want to get your real estate license and buy investment properties that my cleaning property management company can manage. I think this is all about kind of having that side hustle that turns into something bigger. Like I wouldn't say, you know what, forget my cleaning business, which obviously you want to use your cleaning business probably eventually if you own these properties, and focus on this full time. That goes back to what I talked about earlier in this live video cast. And that's just the fact that if you build it, they will come. Don't do that. So it sounds like you've just got step-by-step things that you want to do. And I think the best way to do this, because I find this in my business too, I have all my operational roles, but I've got all my side projects I want to work on right now. Like I'm in the midst, again, like I'm doing a podcast, but I'm also working on my YouTube channel. I'm going to improve that, working with a coach on that, which in a way, it's kind of like a different business. Learning how to do YouTube, learning how to get viewership, learning all the ins and outs of how to structure a YouTube video for business purposes. Like this is like a whole new skill set. So I think what you have to do is, and I think this is actually great for all of us to kind of think about. I personally like scheduling my business this way, and that's like kind of like blocking time off for those side hustles. And you have to put them on your calendar, and you literally have to write it down as part of your day, or it just won't get done. Now, there's two ways you can do that. Like you can say to yourself every single day at 3:00, and it's just an example, obviously, I'm just going to work on getting my real estate license. Like that's the time I have every day that I work on it for an hour, 2 hours. I'm going to sit, I'm going to work on that. I'm going to book my tests for X months out, so it's all scheduled in. And that's kind of like a nice way to time block during the day. So you can say, okay, I'm putting that hat on now because I'm going into side hustle mode. Now, another way to do it, and this is a friend of mine who's a writer, we were actually just talking about this the other day, is it's kind of funny. So he does editing of those really syrupy romance novels. Like, remember Danielle Steele? He had some really funny ones, like about being on alien planets and like, lots of lust and love. It's like pretty funny, but actually he edits these. But his side hustle is he's actually writing a book. And if you think about it, like if you're sitting there editing someone else's book, that's not the same creative headspace as if you're writing your own book, where, you're really switching gears on that. So what he does is he front loads all the work on his essential editing for these therapy romance novels for the first 2 or 3 days of the week. And then the rest of the week, because he just can't switch gears every day, he just focuses on his writing, which I thought was a really cool way of doing it. And I find that too, like I'll break up days when I'm going to be like today I'm doing this video with you. I did a whole thing on investing for a trading platform this morning. And again, I'm going to be on Fox Business in about 45 minutes. So like I'm all in on media today. But if I had been sitting there, I don't know, working on someone's proposal, doing like a portfolio analysis, I wouldn't be in the same headspace as I can be, when I'm doing this, like, hey, I'm all in on talking to people, emoting. It's a whole different vibe. So you can actually block your days off like that. So I've kind of belabored the point, but you see where I'm going with that. So there's no reason you can't do both, but you really, really got to block that time off, and you've got to make it like literally put it on your calendar. You've got to schedule it in. That's what I do. If I'm doing videos, like I'm scheduling it in. I'm not just going to be like, oh yeah, later today I'm going to do that. That's a recipe for disaster. So I don't want you to do that. Okay, cool. We're going to keep moving and grooving, but good luck. I mean, I love the ambition there. I think that's amazing, and I think you can get to your goals. But just the whole idea is to just chunk it down as well, right? The first thing is get the real estate license. Just make those little incremental goals, because your larger overarching goals are huge. You got to chunk that down right now. So just another word on that, Erica. Okay, next question comes in from Ashley Escobar. I think I'm saying it correctly. When you started your business, do you think it was more beneficial to get a business loan or have an investor? Why? I have this question because the business I'm building is already a product, but it is improved. I think just face value here, Ashley, and this is kind of, again, very face value. I mean, a loan, in my opinion, if the economics work where this new improved product, you're going to get the sales eventually that you can pay the loan back, like why give up equity? I don't think you only give up equity when you can't get that loan or you can't get an amount in a loan that you would need to really scale up, unless you're looking to bring a partner in that can actually bring some resources to the table or an investor that can. I mean, money is so cheap right now that if you can get approved for a loan at a reasonable interest rate, like why wouldn't you go for the loan? I started my business on credit cards. Back in the old school days of 2008, I was able to get like $100,000 on a credit card loan. These days do not exist anymore, by the way, at 0%. Like, hell yeah, I was going to take that money. It was like a cash advance for like 12 months. And by the time that cash advance was over, I think I actually had 2 different lines out there to like $125,000 or something crazy. But, in a year I had the business, I just paid off the loans and I owned the business. So I think a loan is always preferable, especially if the economics work, that I would actually, I would definitely go for, again, taking the loan. I'm looking here, your business description. Oh no. Well, okay, never mind. I'm actually, you already said that you're building a product and you haven't really said what the product is. So yeah, so that's my advice there. I think if the economics work, you can get a loan, you can borrow cheaply right now. Like, I don't think it's getting any better from where you can borrow at like you can right now. I mean, these are the best interest rates I've seen in my career. So borrow cheaply if you can would be the rule of thumb. Now, if there's other things to talk about in there, DM me offline. I can help you break it out, but I think that's good, just rule of thumb advice. Okay, we're off to the last question here. And of course, it's going to be the hardest name to pronounce for my terrible American, I only speak English type of, embarrassingly type of way. But McBon Genkenji. Actually, I think I may have gotten that right. But I don't know. But McBon, okay, so let's get into your question. Who is the best person or place to go for education? Place to go for education. What expenses should I put under the company debit card? You're in the construction business. I'm not sure if I'm capturing your question correctly. Who's the best person or place to go for education? What kind of education are you looking for? That'd be my first question. And what expenses should I put under my company debit card? Well, that really depends. I mean, I recommend here you definitely work with a CPA to decide what expenses are deductible versus not deductible. And the other question I would have is, why have a debit card to become a credit card, build credit, and build points if you're going to pay it off every month? So just food for thought. I'm not sure where you're located, but in the U.S. here, clearly building credit is a way better way to go. In our business, we are American Express We put a lot on that American Express, would pay it off every month. But man, oh man, like I've used points for flying. I've used those points for other things in the business. So, maybe I'm looking at a credit card here. And then again, I definitely work with a CPA. I don't like to make those unless you are a CPA. I let my CPA decide what expenses are deductible, what aren't deductible, but I would not go at that alone. And in terms of education, maybe it's for education on what expenses. Talk to a CPA. If you need a CPA, you need to talk to somebody, just hit me a DM offline here, or technically online, but on Facebook, and I'll see what I can do. I think I understand your question now. I'll see what I can do to maybe give you an introduction there to somebody that can at least get you started. But yeah, you got to be very careful about what you deduct and don't deduct. And those rules changed a little bit under the Trump administration, like stuff that I used to be able to deduct, I can't anymore. You need a CPA is the bottom line there. All right, that was a pretty good list of questions. I'm just going to check out over here on the live if there's anything else that needs to be answered, but it looks like we're good right now. Okay, cool. I think that covers it. That was actually a lot of data today. I think a lot of good stuff that we covered today. So I'll do one of these again once a month, just, periodically during the month. If you have questions, just send them. We're going to build them up, and I'll go through and answer them to the best of my ability as I can. And again, it's just, this is great for me too, just because I'm in the midst of growing my business massively right now. So even just doing this today with you guys was great, because it actually gave me a couple ideas for my business. I just love that gift card idea. Like, get them a nice restaurant in their area. It's so good. But thank you. And, really enjoy doing these as always. Everyone enjoy the rest of their summer. I'll probably do one some kind of like middle of August as summer winds down, and hopefully we slowly get out of quarantine and things get a little better. But enjoy your summer, and we'll look to do this again soon. Thank you very much.